Clare, like this was a real trend over the weekend. That teams started quite well and ended up falling away and losing their matches. So just to look at Clare, for example, I think they went, it was 8 points to 1 ahead against Galway and ultimately lost 22 points to 124. And this was, of course, at home. And like, let's look at the trend across the board. Waterford went 4 points to 1 ahead and we're playing the better stuff. Took Tipperary a while to get going. Same in the second half. I think also there was the Cork game against Waterford. Or Wexford. Wexford were well ahead, and then Cork came out and won the game as well. So it's a bit of a strange one. It's like 2018 when the 8 or 9 point lead ended up being a dangerous lead.
Yeah, I remember that actually. Yeah, those two mad All-Ireland semi-finals as well. And even, as you said, Kilkenny were 16 up on Dublin and nearly lost that game. And Kilkenny were at least 9 up on Waterford in that 2020 All-Ireland semi-final and ended up getting beaten comprehensively enough after. Yeah, it's funny. Like, if you went 8-1 up in football, like, the chances of you losing that game are, you'd have to say, really slim. Not that you'd shut up shop or anything like that. But in hurling, like, Galway were well back in that game 10 minutes after being 7 points down. And you'd have to say they were much the better team for 3/4 of the game, having started, really poorly. But they let Clare do as they liked in that opening quarter. Clare had so much time in the ball. John Conlon was walking out with ball. Conor Cleary was walking out with ball unopposed at times. They had time to look up to see where they were going in. And it's funny, Shane, you mentioned about that 8-1 as well. Clare had a couple of chances that they could have ended up, 11, 12-1 up. They were really wasteful for 4 or 5 minutes after that spell. And I always think, in snooker, they say the balls never forget, or they never forgive you, or whatever. They come back and haunt you if you're after missing a couple of shots that you should have. It can be the same in hurling, that when you have the chance to really, keep the foot on a team's throat or whatever, if you don't take those chances, the other team almost gets a bit of momentum. I think Evan Nyland hit 3 in a row, definitely 2 from play in a row, and a free as well. All of a sudden, Galway were back in the game. And Clare never really looked like winning the game. At any stage in the second half, you'd have to say.
Yeah, it was quite strange. Grodo Gracon says maybe it's to do with training blocks. And that is something that has occurred to me as well, that teams start well, and actually maybe that's a symptom of the fact that they're physically flying at the moment, but then they run out of juice. Do you feel like that could be?
I don't know, really. I would have said, to be honest with you, that if you started well, like a lot of time would be a lack of freshness, maybe, that you wouldn't hit the ground running from the start, if you get me, and you'd feel like you're a bit stuck to the ground. Maybe that was the case with Galway, but I don't know. I kind of find it hard to make excuses. You'll hear anecdotally different things, or teams are at different stages or whatever. Everybody's training hard at the moment. Do you know what I mean? So I don't really kind of see it as an excuse.
Yeah, so Clare were 8 points to 1 up after 14 minutes. They lost the rest of the game by, it was 14 points to 123. So that's 12 points for the rest of the game that they were beaten. Did you notice how it was a bit of a game of ping pong at times? So a team would have a shot, then puck out, bang, over the bar or bang wide. So like the amount of times that Davy Fitzgerald was able to just get on ball from a puck out instantly. And another thing I noticed that, and look, this may change during the summer or what have you, but there's a lot of times when Galway, so Clare seem to be pushing 2 men up front, either side of the D, when they're defending a puck out for Galway. So therefore, the idea is that they're keeping the numbers further back the field and they don't really mind if Galway get it short. The other way around, Galway had 3 up front, and which is fine in another way. Like, obviously teams have different plans, but there was a lot of times when Clare were able to get the ball unopposed in their half-back line because Galway had pushed 3 men up front and they didn't have numbers back. And I just wonder, they're like, we're not too fussed about tactics in these games and just what'll be will be. But it definitely was a feature, and maybe added to the fact that it was a ping pong match.
Yeah, I definitely actually remember particularly stages, well, the first half and even the second half as well, where David Fitzgerald just got free shots away. I remember Tony Kelly getting a few free shots away, even though he didn't score, Shane, at all. Not from play or not from a place ball. And I was only saying to you off air, like, when's the last time this happened? He obviously did score in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. I think he hit a couple of frees, even though he was kept very quiet by Mikey Butler. I couldn't think of, and I'd love to hear Adrian McGrath, Derek Lynch, or any of the Clare boys be able to tell us when was the last time he didn't score from play. He was playing an unusual really kind of a deep role, was picking the ball up around his own 45 at different stages. And I know we're probably not going to talk about it directly now, but Desi Hutchinson played a really similar role with Waterford too, which I found really strange, out around the middle of the park. And I I don't know. It's not usually where you have your killers really out around the middle of the park. So I find that kind of strange in both respects.
Yeah, I suppose with Tony Kelly, like if I go back to that Club All Ireland in 2017, a lot of the analysis we would have done beforehand was how he was picking up an awful lot of ball between his own 65 and 45. So that's in his game. So I can understand how you just want him to go wherever the ball is. But yeah, it was just a very muted performance from him. And yeah, get your comments in. When is the last time that Tony Kelly didn't score from play for Clare? Because even go back to, was it 2011 was his debut for Clare against Dublin? He scored a 21-yard free that day. It was the day that, wasn't it, Dalo brought, oh no, it was 2012, that Dalo brought Dublin down to Clare in Ennis.
That's right.
That was a fair old occasion at that stage. I remember he scored a 21-yard free. He must have scored from play that day. But, geez, it's very difficult to think of any game at all where he wouldn't have scored.
No, I kind of racking my brain trying to think.
Did he score against Tip last year? Because I know Seamus Kennedy kept him very quiet.
Sure, he would have been hitting freeze. He would have been hitting freeze. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking, like, to not score from play is one thing, but he would have been hitting freeze at various stages as well. I'm sure there probably is a time, but I just can't kind of think of it offhand at the moment. Just on Galway as well, Shane. I thought it was really peculiar. I was looking back. The image you did for the preview of the game was John Conlon marking Dahi Burke in 2018, and both of them were playing number 6 yesterday. Which I just was like, a guy who's played 14 most of his career, or 10 in Conlon. Dahi Burke has played. He obviously came in at wing back, played a bit of cornerback, but is one of the best fullbacks of the generation. Now you have the two of them at 6, and both obviously both pretty polished yesterday. Dahi Burke came forward and got 2 great points. I'm wondering if Henry was looking at the Cork game and thinking, like, the way the Galway defence opened up like the Red Sea in that game, or they're thinking, if he's there, that won't happen. And then they put McInerney at fullback, and a little hat tip to TJ Brennan as well. I thought he was very good when he went over on David Reedy, because Reedy was causing Jack Grealish a good bit of trouble, but he went over and got in really tight with him in his face, and David Reedy got on a bit of ball after, but he was way quieter once TJ Brennan went on him. And if you look at the half back line that Galway had, you had obviously Mannion on one side, Dahi Burke and Joseph Cooney. That's a fairly formidable half-back line, and a half-back line that's going to be hard to break down. Whether they can afford to play the 3 of them there come big championship games, I'm not so sure, and they might need to move a couple of pieces around a bit.
Yeah, would you be inclined to leave Dahi Burke out in the half-back line? I mean, look, it's huge to have somebody of his quality minding the square, but, I'd rather have a stopper rather than someone like him who's so dynamic, can drive forward, as well with his Gaelic football background with Cara Finn. He knows how to give and go, which is all the hallmarks of the modern game. Or do you be just thinking you just need a monster on the square?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Is he going to come a big championship game against, your Limericks or Kilkennys or whatever? Is he going to be pulled out? Is he going to be less influential? Whereas, inside, he's going to be picking up Aaron Gillan, or, he's going to be picking up Owen Cody, or, a real marquee forward, and you're thinking, if this is kamikaze stuff and there's real good ball going into the forwards, this guy is still going to break even at worst. Difficult when, you're putting a 30-year-old in centre-back who's only played a handful of inter-county games at centre-back. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of, this is like yesterday was his first game back this year. So how much time I think Shane O'Neill tried him there as well I remember in a couple of league games. I reckon when push comes to shove, he'll probably end up back number 3, because I just think they won't be able to afford to not have him there.
What's rare is wonderful too that he actually did an interview on telly afterwards. I remember he did it after one of the Cara Finn All Irelands, and I remember all the players went behind the kind of glass shield and were ribbing away, and there he was doing the interview yesterday.
Because a lot of people wouldn't know what he sounds like, because he's never. I don't ever recall him. They're the only 2 interviews I ever recall him doing. I don't ever recall him doing any press things or All Ireland press nights for Galway or Cara Finn or anything like that. But I'm sure Shefflin is delighted to have him back, and he didn't look like he missed a beat, and I think he was pulled off probably at the right time too for a guy that has played very little action this year.
Yeah, they still have Fintan Burke to come in there too, which is obviously true. Yeah, ML89 says Clare haven't knocked out a top team in championship in 10 years. I don't see that changing either. They're just lacking something. Don't know, is it belief or something? So that's ML89 discounting Wexford as a top team last year. Richard Hogan says, Galway have 4 massive defenders in Dahi Burke, Road McInerney, Finton Burke and TJ Brennan. This could free up Joseph Cooney to the half-forward line. Or maybe he's just another addition around that middle area because, like, physically he's huge. He can score from distance. He can deliver the ball and he's able to drive through the line. Adrian McGrath, the Clare man, is in. The 8 points to 1 wasn't dominance. It was accuracy, in my view. Conlon dominated Whelan. Cleary and Flanagan were excellent. Kelly looked like a man there for a run-out, which is as it should be. Right, okay. So everything was done to perfection by the sound.
Ever the man to put a positive spin on it, in fairness, Adrian. I'll give you
Clare,
that.
he's worse than me saying Tipper back.
Did you see? You didn't see it because you were down at the game. Nisha's last question to Jason Ford on the pitch the other night was, "Are Tip back?" And I was like, I can't believe this is the thing, because I was chatting to somebody the other day and they said to me as well, "Are Tip back?" And it's like you've made it a thing now.
Well, I'd say Nisha did that probably just for me because because I'm just looking at the WhatsApp group I have with him and some of the other Bogger Apes from Kula, and there's a comment that went up on our WhatsApp group saying, "Our Tip back," with laughy faces around the time of the game being over. So obviously he had one of the other lads had caught this and knew that it was directed at me. But yeah, that's a good one. John Conlon's, I suppose, redeployment at centre back. Have we ever seen a player have his position switched so in such an unlikely circumstances because he was a full forward, but so successfully?
Probably not, and I'd say both of us were probably questioning whether it was going to work after wasn't he centre back when Antrim beat them up in Corrigan Park that time, and the question,
we wrote him off, didn't we?
Oh no, we did, yeah. And the question was, is Brian Lohan a bit mad for putting him back here? And he'd be back full forward the next day, or he'd be back wing forward, or whatever it is. But he stuck it out. He's so cool on the ball, and like he did it when Whelan was out centre forward yesterday. He was brilliant on him and spoiled him beautifully. And Conor Whelan, outside of that goal, kind of cut a really frustrated figure yesterday. So Conor has been outstanding at centre back. And listen, the All-Ireland semi-final last year against Kilkenny would probably be a completely different proposition had he been on the pitch. And there's no point in saying any different about it. It probably would have been.
Yeah, okay. So just go through a couple more of the comments here. This is in terms of Clare again. Their historic victories the last decade have mostly been Laois and Wexford. Struggling to think of an actual All-Ireland contender they've beaten in a knockout game since 2013. Strange one. And then, of course, in 2013, did they beat the best teams in Ireland, Michael Verney?
We've probably... listen, I think even Clare people are kind of realising that it's Tip 2019 or Clare 2013 for the softest All Ireland's won in recent times. No point in saying any different.
Oh, okay, good man, turned the gun on me. TV Street says Dahi Burke holding the mic looked like all he was missing was the I Shot JR t-shirt from the Unbelievables. That was from Father Ted, wasn't it?
Father Ted, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think your man in the Unbelievables might have had something similar as well, yeah.
Yeah, TV Street Ford's face when he asked him where Tip back.
Like, how did he answer that question? Like, Jason actually answered it quite well, and there was kind of a smirk about it because, like, that's like something you get, someone says to you down the pub or something, when you're having a bit of a laugh or something, and instead Nisha says it to him live on national television.
So Pa OK says Tip are so back. Interesting spelling of back. Have changed our tune on Munster, lads. Cork and Waterford not qualifying, in my opinion. Like, we'd probably change our opinion on this every week, but one thing's for sure, Tip are back.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do, before the round robin, and we're armed with a load of information. We'll do, a confident call on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in Leinster. But my opinion is changing the whole time. Based on what I've seen from Waterford so far, and I would have had Waterford as probably second in Munster. I don't see them getting out at the moment with all these injuries. That probably heaps into that as well. But we might keep our powder dry on that one.
We will indeed. Okay.